Hello, everyone. Today we have a new guest.
Hi.
It's Florian. I know him from Angular Architects. We've been on quite a few beautiful offsites together and talked about a bunch of topics. And most recently, we also talked about agentic coding. So that's why he's here today, to believe he has a very interesting story to tell. And of course, Manuel is here again. And I'm here with a new background. I'm looking into my laptop from the top, kind of, as I'm on the go. But of course, every Friday it's lunch talk time, and so is this Friday as well. Let's maybe kick things off with a quick introduction. Florian, what are you doing in your day job?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. I am the CEO of NemoVote. So NemoVote is a startup. We developed an online voting platform for it's basically for political parties, for for communities, for sports clubs. So everything where you need to have events where you have some kind of voting involved. And we offer live voting for our customers, and of course secure voting with GDPR and everything you need. And we run it as a startup. I'm the CEO, but I'm also, because my background is really technical, I'm a technical CEO, so I still into coding, or as I can say today, into letting agents code for me. And yeah, that's me.
Interesting. Thank you. So I want to say pretty high stakes. No, if things go wrong there, that's quite bad. So you really want to make sure your code is good.
It is.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. I have one topic today that I quickly want to talk about before we delve into Florian's story. Recently, OpenAI launched GPT-5.4 Mini and Nano. And what stuck out to me is that, of course, again, pretty good, right? Steadily increasing over the previous versions, exactly what you would expect, to be fair. But one thing stuck out to me, and it's the pricing. So I do believe it's 3 times more expensive than GPT-5 Mini, which that's interesting. I feel like labs are now really getting into testing willingness to pay. How much are users willing to pay, or the models got so much more expensive? It's got to be one of the two of those, right? But I think that's kind of interesting because, of course, the mini and nano models are the ones you would use in your product. So maybe not for coding exactly, but rather for, I want to launch this agentic feature, and now we see a 300% price hike. That's quite a bit, I want to say. Did you see that? Did you get into testing the new models?
So I stuck with the large one. I stick to the large ones for the moment, because right now I have like really large fundamental work that I need to do, but I'm testing the waters with the, let's say, the smaller or less capable, but hopefully at least a little bit cheaper models like Kimi K. But I think I reported that last week also. As soon as I have, the foundation is there, I have very good guardrails, very good documentation, etc. Then it's time to bring in the junior developers if you want. So this is still my pattern. So no, for the moment, I didn't play around with those, to be honest.
Right. Okay. And in our pre-talk lobby, basically, so before we started the stream, we also briefly talked about the fact that it's really kind of weird because we don't write the code anymore. So agents now write the code, the robots do the work there, but the testing is still there for the humans to take. So we wanted to talk about this as well. What is actually going on there? Florian, you brought up this topic. Can you briefly explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, that is a topic that is quite important for me right now, because we are still scaling as a company and as a product, and we would not have had the opportunity to bring a lot of new developers to our code base that fast if we are looking at the old world. And now we have agents, and what agents basically do is like spawning like 10 new developers to your project. and they all do work. And of course, I am the orchestrator. But there is that point where I had like 10 tabs open, all tabs with Claude Code, and I worked on my work trees and made like 10 features at one time, and then they are all finished. And then I have those merge requests I have to review, and I have to integrate everything. And of course, new features are not allowed to destroy existing features, of course. And yeah, I have to make sure that everything fits together. And yeah, basically right now, I know you can write a lot of end-to-end tests to ensure that integration tests and unit testing, but I also feel, for me, there is a gap where I have to do a lot of manual testing right now to basically ensure that all my employees are doing the right stuff, because sometimes, with agents, they lose their memory, what they did last night, or they are not aware what the other agents did. Sometimes they don't know the code base that well. They pretend to, but we all know sometimes they fail. And so I do a lot of manual testing, and that's not the state where I want to be around right now. And of course, I think about automating it using AI. And yeah, I wanted to ask you, what is your experience with this topic? How do you ensure that all the features written by those little robots don't destroy existing code and everything fits together?
I think one of the toughest challenges is actually the overlapping part, right? So work that happens in parallel, getting that merged together again. That's one of the toughest questions I faced. For the testing part, what I usually try to do, I try not to interfere with the coding process at all, but rather I work as a product manager almost. I just try to be very, very, very specific about what I want from the product and what success criteria looks like and what failures would look like. And then what I expect from the agents, and I have this in my agents MD file, is that it runs a smoke test. So basically seeding some data in the staging application, and then running through that with agent browser plus automated testing. So I think the automated testing is one part of the equation, but only one part. I think the part where you use agent browser to simulate a human, basically, that's where the models are quite good, because then they have eyes on the prize, basically, because they can actually use the application as a user would do it. And I specifically ask it to find edge cases. So this sometimes works good, sometimes not so good, right? Because we're also sometimes not so good at finding the edge cases. But that way, I have 3 angles of the product covered. So I use component tests for getting the technical testing done. Basically, does 1 + 1 = 2, and does it work right when I give it some mock data? And the end-to-end testing as a nightly build, so to speak. So with every nightly runner, I try to really test end-to-end, as the name implies. So I test the full flow. I want to know, does everything work in the orchestra, basically? Does it produce a symphony? And then the agent browser tests, those are the ones where I test my increment. So Ingmar put in the chat, we have to completely rethink QA and review processes. I want to say I didn't really do that. I just said, well, if I have agents at my disposal, I can also use them as QA engineers, right? I can also tell them to go into that detail as well. And of course, this takes time and tokens, but it's just part of my development process.
What's the technical setup behind a browser using QA agent?
So Vercel has released Agent Browser. It's open source. It's a headless browser that sorry, is it even a headless browser? It might even have a head in some constellation. It's a very quick browser that you can use from the terminal. And that way I can hand the browser to the agents. And I saw another one recently, which apparently is even faster than that, because time is really of the essence there, right? Because the slower the browser is, so if you take Playwright, for example, I personally think it's painfully slow. So it really takes its time to boot up, to navigate between routes, to enter data, and so on and so forth. You know this from end-to-end tests. But agent browser really is quite fast. So with every increment, with every feature, every bug fix that I ship, it's mandatory for the agent to run agent browser and test whatever we just built. And I feel like the really positive thing about this idea is that the agent in that moment has all of the context readily available, right? So the agent knows what it just built. It still knows about the requirements that I gave it, and it has that all in the same context window, and then it starts testing with that exact context.
I have to admit, I expected the exact opposite, that you say, I don't give you, I mean, I give you a little bit of context, like, okay, here's an application and I want you to test this and this. But I mean, it sounds a little bit like the typical, the engineer who builds something has to test it himself. And is he biased? Is he really neutral? Did you think about that aspect?
It's actually a sub-agent, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily the same engineer.
Okay.
You could even give, so what I tested before, admittedly, this was 50-50. I gave it, what do you call it in Codex? It's kind of like an agent personality that you can give to it, an agent role. And I gave it the role of, you are the QA engineer. You're testing what the engineer just built and review it really thoroughly. And first and foremost, be absolutely radical. But what I found is that you can also tell this to the same coding agent, and it will also be very radical and upfront with itself.
Okay, sounds good. Great.
So I found this to work quite well. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Florian.
I think the idea of the nightly builds makes totally sense to me, because I usually have the problem. I can do a lot of end-to-end testing in my application, but if it runs in the pipeline, I have another bottleneck, which is my CI builds. Yeah. And right now, my CI builds are a bottleneck because I blow out merge requests in no time, like I never did before, and that of course makes my CI pipeline bottleneck. And I think this idea of nightly tests maybe is maybe it's a comeback for the nightly builds, because for me it was always like nightly builds. We did this in this huge software projects with Java EE back in the time, but right now everything was in the CI pipeline, and I think this might be a paradigm shift again for me. So I don't know how other people's work, but yeah.
Ingmar said in the chat, I somehow have the hunch that something fundamental has to be done differently, like a new paradigm, new axioms. Probably, but I don't know where to look for it right now. I gotta admit. So what I really fell back to is, so I gave this testing workshop a couple of years ago, and it was about how do I efficiently test with Cypress, Playwright, Angular testing tools, and so on and so forth. And there is this testing pyramid, right? So the broad base is unit tests because they're really, really fast and efficient. You can run them on a pre-commit hook. Then there's component or integration tests, and then you have the end-to-end tests. And I think that I still do the same thing, because at the end of the day, we have TypeScript as a compiler, which looks for the most obvious issues. Then I have unit tests as a kind of harness. Then I have component tests sitting above that as a sanity check. And then I have some time to run all of the other tests, basically. And that way I can just use the fastest ones in my pipeline and leave the other ones for whenever I have time for a release or a nightly build or whatever. It's kind of what I stick to right now.
That totally makes sense.
And one other thing we wanted to talk about is security. So today I want to say it's a bit technical. Which is good. I like that. And you found something, Florian, because we the two of us recently found us in a debate where I want to say we're the advocates for coding agents, and we had some devil's advocates as well who said, yeah, this is all super insecure. You cannot do this, not in a customer project, not in a client-facing project, and everything will go to shambles, basically, because you don't have it under your control, and this can only end up in a bad place. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm building a startup with this right now, and to do regular security audits, and it works quite well. And then you also had a pretty nice story to tell. So why don't you go ahead and educate us on that.
Yeah, of course. It happens to me, of course, that I'm as well a lot in these discussions. Back in the time, I was defending humans because, everything is saying, online voting, that doesn't fit together because online is never secure and voting always has to be secure. Back in the days, I defended humans. I said, humans can write secure code. That's totally possible. And now I defend agents, which I find kind of funny. But I think the arguments are the same. You write code and you make mistakes, and sometimes a mistake brings in a new vulnerability to your code. And that totally happens in software development all the time. I think we know every software has bugs, and every bug might be a security issue. But you find them the same way you write them. So you go into the code, if you have access to the code, and you are searching for patterns that might be an issue. And going into the code, searching stuff, understanding stuff, that is something where agents are really, really nice at. And
Exactly.
I think Anthropic saw this, and there are a lot of other projects where you can basically you can do security scanning on your application. And I was really, really curious about, because I thought, okay, I know humans make mistakes, and in my application there might be human mistakes humans were not able to find. So I just ran this /security review, I guess it's in Claude, this new skill by Anthropic, to just have a feeling what is in my application. And of course we are doing human pen testing as well on a really regular basis on our product, but I was really curious to see if it does find things humans did not discover. And it turned out to be, yes, it found things. And I had this really pretty report in a Markdown file. And of course, I rendered it to PDF to share it with my colleagues. And we discussed it and we looked into it. And it found in some of our applications, because not every application I work on is online voting, we have internals application and a lot of other stuffs. And it found some bugs. And those applications were in a pen test and the bugs were not found. And sometimes it was really like an issue that comes with a specific timing of the application. And basically it might never happen in production, but it's theoretically possible to exploit. And for me, it was totally mind-blowing that Claude was like, I think it ran 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I had really, really, really great results. And the best was, of course, Claude made a plan how to fix all the issues. And we just discussed it and saw the plan is good. The issues are real. Some of them are exploitables. There were some false positives as well. Okay, fair. But they were fixed like in half an hour. And if I think about what a pen test costs and how expensive it is basically a really, really good piece to a security strategy. So I would not omit security pen tests really done by humans, but I know now the human pen testers, they use AI, and I can prepare for a pen test by using AI, finding issues in my code base, and I can bring it in my usual flow. Like always before I merge a feature, I do the /security review. I also have a skill around that, and it basically reminds me every time to do it. And I think that is a huge step for application security. And of course, letting agents write code is a threat, but I think there is also a huge benefit we can get from AI. And I'm more on the pro side, I'd say so.
The security review, you did this on code written by humans or code written by agents?
On both. And it found more on the human side, but it also found its own security bugs, which I found great. And of course, there is this idea where you let several models go into your code base and they find the bugs from other models. And I think that is a strategy. So this could work. And of course, it's not exhaustive, but if you want to have it exhaustive, then of course you bring again the human pen test, and then you have all those pieces, and all those pieces make your application as secure as possible.
Right. I also did this, by the way. I didn't use the security review feature, but rather a tool called Shannon. And it's basically also an agent harness that comes with a bunch of pen testing tools. So you hand it your code base because they basically want to know that you're not attacking someone, but rather just testing your own stuff. And then it tries to go off and find all potential threats. So it conducts a full-scale pen test. And I really like Ingmar's comment here. I think in 10 years, we will facepalm looking back at how we were trying to tackle the advent of AI in code. Yeah, that might be true. There's a lot of trickery involved at the moment, right? So we're basically constantly applying little band-aids to our process left and right. But I think that's fun as well, right? It's fun to tinker with this, and I see the same results. Yeah, so when I run it, like you just described, basically do a security check-in every now and then, automated one. I find whatever I need to fix, I fix it straight away, and this is stuff that basically would have blocked me from developing new features just 6 months ago or so. And now this can be fully automated, and even that you can run nightly, right? So I have an automation in Codex that does a nightly, well, not nightly per se, it's 6 p.m. every day at 6 p.m. It does an architecture and security review and spawns a bunch of GitHub issues with whatever it finds. And then in the morning, I review those and let the coding agents pick them up. So this is stuff, let's be honest, right here. You've been in bigger software projects. This is stuff that usually isn't done. It's done every 6 months or so. Then you take a week off and do just that. And now I can have it running on a daily basis. So I think it's working out quite fancily already, because now the iteration cycles are so much shorter, which of course doesn't protect you from having the big oopsies in production. That's of course true as well.
Yeah, but I guess having something like that was so expensive back in the days. So of course it was done, but not in that frequency.
Yep.
Florian, what you described, the tooling from Claude or from Anthropic that you put to use, is that basically just good old Claude code with a well-written skill, or is that something more? Is it something more fancy?
I think it was basically just a skill, and I think it's baked into Claude Code by default now. But for me, it just looked like a normal skill run. And I guess it's a really well-written skill with a lot of evals and all the stuff to make sure it works the way it's intended. But yeah, it's not that much magic, I guess.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a little bit more than just a skill. I think it's baked into the harness directly, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
All right. Do we have anything else today that you want to talk about? I think this might be a short one today. We might be on time for the first time ever.
I just wanted to add one sentence to the security stuff, because one topic I find is really important. We all know that the attackers use AI to find vulnerabilities in our applications, and they can do a lot more investigation like back in the days when they had no AI. So I think it's our duty to use those tools to protect against those really fast attackers right now.
Agree.
True. I just have a tiny anecdote. So I'm usually not the type of guy who goes like, oh, there is this magic prompt that makes everything better, and here is another formulation that you need to perfectly use Claude Code. But there is one thing that I now fundamentally use every time, and it's very simple. It's simply to just say when you're done with planning and all preparation, and you really want it to code now, then I say, okay, do the implementation and do it strictly with red, green TDD. So that's something that works extremely well for me. And interestingly, what didn't work was to just ask it, well, do TDD, right? If I just ask it to work in a test-driven manner, then it still goes and writes the implementation, then writes the test and checks everything, but it's not doing the real testing. So really writing strictly red, green TDD is the magic formula in this case. And then I had a funny occurrence where I was still, so coding was done and we were already back to discussing stuff or whatnot. And I asked it to change something in the documentation. And then it went, okay, now I grab that this word is not in the markdown file. Then I write the word into the markdown file. And then I grab that the word is now in the markdown file. So this is a really strong formula, it seems. That was a funny moment. So that's my anecdote of the week.
Interesting. But yeah, I actually have to say I switched my workflow up a little bit because I basically didn't test anything for a while. So just when the LLM decided that this is worth testing. But the larger my code base is now growing, the more tests I introduce, because I found that a lot of regressions happen left and right, but not because of the LLM not thinking about it properly, but because I basically lost the oversight, so to speak, right? So because I'm developing features at a very, very, very fast cadence, to me at least, I forgot that I built this other feature just 5 days ago, which accesses the same table in the database, for example. So I now do this more and more, and I try to switch it up to be more tests first. Here's the requirements. Let's think about this. But again, I do believe I mentioned this in every lunch talk that we've had so far. I try to let the agent go off on its own. So I try to let it decide how it wants to implement stuff. So I still feel like that's a very good approach in the sense that I don't have to force the agent to do anything in my process, because every time I tried that, it didn't really work. So you can really tell the the training data is in there. They're trained on harnesses by now. So I try not to interfere with that in any kind of way. All right, let's have some final words from Ingmar here. AI coding is fun as hell. So let's get back to that. Let's make it a quick one today. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for Florian for being here. And of course, Manuel, thank you for being here every week, standing strong.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Dan, have a good day.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.